everybody. Welcome. Can you hear me okay today? I just want to make sure that the volume is okay on my speaker. So just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay. If not, I'll bring the speaker a little closer. Yeah, good. Okay, great. Okay. Welcome everybody. Happy Thursday. Happy kind of cloudy, sunny, but at least it's nice and warm here in Ottawa. Our practice today, you're going to need a couple of blocks. But other than that, if you want to have some other props handy, such as like blankets or bolsters or towels or pillows or anything like that, then absolutely go ahead and grab those things. We're going to focus on hips and the back today. So a little bit of hips and a little bit of back. With hips, I mean, there's such a broad area of the body that works when we talk about hips. So it affects, the front of the body, it affects the back of our body, and it's all interconnected. So when we start to work at areas of the hips, we also start to affect things like opening up, the front line of the body, opening up, quadriceps, hamstrings, glutes, the back body. Everything starts to kind of like open up when you work this sort of, I call it the container, but this area around here is kind of like the focus of what we're doing today is working, the outer line of the hips, the inner part of the hips. And of course, that's going to affect our back. So we're going to work those areas as well so that we're feeling a little bit more spacious and balanced. Especially when you're working areas that affect your hips, you really want to ensure that you're breathing nice and deeply. So really focus on your breath first, and then focus on finding the physical sensation of release second. Often if we try to push into the really deep release first, what will often happen is the body will automatically, without us even really being aware of it, will automatically just start to tense up a little bit. And with that, that means that fascia and ligaments, joints, even muscle begins to get tighter instead of actually opening up. And then lastly, what ends up happening is we lose that really deep diaphragmatic breathing because the body is just tensed up, and then the nervous system has also followed that same suit as well. So think of, I always say this in my yin classes, think less is actually more. So think less sensation and think more breath. And you'll be surprised. I mean, it might take a bit of time, but you'll notice over the course of practices that when you focus on your breath first, and then feeling the release in your physical body second, you'll actually find that you'll get a deeper release, but it won't feel like that's actually what has happened, okay? So, of course, listen to your body. Modify if you need to. I'm going to provide with different options for some of the postures that we're going to work, just because there are some, postures that could affect the knee sensitivity. But other than that, I think we're pretty much ready to go. So we're going to start on our back in reclined butterfly. So I'm going to prop up the back of my head just because I like the cushioning, and I'm also on a hard floor as well. I'm going to grab my blocks today. And when I come down onto my back, I first want to make sure that my shoulder blades are spread apart so that my upper back is nice and flat. Then I'm going to bring the soles of my feet together. I'm going to open my knees wide, and I'm going to slide my blocks. For me today, because my lower back is a little bit tight from I'm going to call it a challenging strength training class yesterday that I did. I'm going to bring my blocks closer towards my hips because this helps to actually support my low back. So that's a great place for you to place the blocks if that's your case. If you feel like your inner thighs are quite tight, then I want you to slide the blocks actually underneath your knees instead, okay? There's a little less support for the back here, but there's more support for the inner thighs. So it really just depends on your body, where you feel you need more support. And if you kind of feel like you need more support in both areas, slide them closest to your hips, but then take your feet a little bit more forward until you'll feel your knees actually drop a little bit closer towards the mat, and you'll feel the low back actually flatten as well. And then you can take your arms wherever you like here, outside from the body. You could take a goalpost position if you like, taking your arms up towards the shoulder height. You could even just bring your hands onto your body as well, maybe on just below the navel. And then draw the chin down towards the chest so that you're lengthening through the back of your neck. Close your eyes and just settle in here, focusing on your breath first. So there's many principles of the yin practice, but one of the most important aspects of this practice is time. And there's a reason why we hold these shapes for a few minutes. It's not just because I'm trying to torture you. It's literally because we are targeting fascia and connective tissue and the energy system of the body first, which is a lot denser, then we are affecting muscle. So muscle is the last piece that is affected in this practice. So that's why we have the time. Think of it as, I often use the analogy, when you have a deep tissue massage, your massage therapist just doesn't get into the muscle really deep at first. He or she has to sort of softly manipulate the tissue a little bit to start to warm it up, to start to encourage it to breathe and to lengthen before they can actually go in a little bit deeper. It's the exact same thing in your yin practice. And with massage, of course, they always encourage you to breathe deeply. And that's because it is a powerful signal for your body to relax. So nice, long, slow, deep breaths. In and out through your nose. And you'll sort of intuitively know when you feel like your body can go a little bit deeper, because your breath is going to be very supportive. There isn't going to be a challenge to breathe deeply. And the sensations that you're going to feel with the physical stretch aren't going to be so intense. So it's like you have only stretched the elastic band a very minute amount. So we're halfway here. This is sort of an indicator. We have another couple of minutes left here. I want you just to notice how your physical body is feeling and notice your breath. Remember, going deeper isn't necessarily always necessary. Sometimes it's nice just to coast in something that feels almost a little bit neutral. Because I can assure you, even if you're not feeling a lot of stretch, you are still lengthening tissue. You're still balancing the energy in your body. You are still releasing It's all happening. So just keep breathing. Nice, long and slow, deep breaths in and out through your nose. You could even begin to find a slightly longer exhale. Even if it's just one count, one breath count longer. Even tune into the sound of your breath that you hear between your ears. And if you're very comfortable with a more, what we call an ujjayi breath or an oceanic sounding breath, you can just slightly restrict the back of your vocal cords. It's almost like you're fogging up a mirror with your mouth closed. And it'll sort of sound like Darth Vader. That's exactly what it sounds like. Especially on your exhale. And that's such a deep, powerful way for your body to let go. Into the last 3 deep breaths. Now from here, you're going to slowly just start to bring your hands underneath your thighs. Use your hands to draw your knees back up, placing your feet onto the mat. Just slide the blocks out of the way for a moment and then pause. You can pause with the knees still bent, or if it feels okay on the low back, just lengthen your legs long. And just let everything sort of settle. It's effectively you're settling into a new shape. You're letting the blood and the energy start to recirculate freely through the body. And this is just a great time to notice how you feel. And from here, walk your feet back onto the mat if they're not already there. And you have one of 2 options here. First option is just to start to windshield wiper the legs from one side to the other. Option 2 is to draw the knees into the chest and find that gentle rock from side to side. Okay, either is good. They're both quite nice for the low back and for the hips. You could even make some big circles if you like with the knees. And then just for a moment, take your legs up into the air. Don't worry, they can be really bent. In fact, you could keep your knees quite bent and your feet just kind of dangling. But any amount of, softness through the back of the knees, you're just going to shake out the legs a little bit. Just let the energy kind of move around a little bit. You can even circle out your ankles and point and flex your toes, especially if you've been sitting a lot today. You just want to get things flowing through. I kind of say it's almost like you're paddling through water upside down here. All right, and then bring the feet back down to the mat. You're going to grab one block. We're going to take the low level here, and actually, I'm going to give you an option of using 2 blocks. This is actually really, really nice for support. So think of the 2 blocks like a couple of tracks on a train. They're going to go side by side. They're going to be running horizontal across your mat. We're going to lay down onto them so that the sacral bone, that little triangular bone that sits just above your tailbone, is where these blocks are going to land. So essentially your entire lower sacrum and the SI joint, the sacroiliac joint, are going to be supported by these blocks. This is a really fabulous way to open up your hip flexors and support your low back without actually creating any strain in the low back. Typically, we only use 1 block, but when you use 2, it can be a game changer. Okay, so the easiest way to get into this, grab your blocks in your hands, come down onto your back, and walk your feet nice and close in towards your hips. You're going to lift your hips up. You're going to slide the blocks underneath. And I mean, you might need to kind of just, what I do is I place my hands on the blocks just to make sure that they're actually evenly placed side by side. And you'll kind of know by placing your hand there whether you've got them so that they are side by side. And then you'll also be able to feel it as well, because if they're not side by side and they're not level, you'll definitely feel it. It'll feel uncomfortable. And then once you have your blocks in place, you're going to draw your shoulder blades apart so that your upper back is flat, chin is to the chest. And then you can keep your knees bent here, but maybe just walk them a little bit more forward so that you're getting some lengthening through the hip flexors. If it's okay on your back, then of course you can lengthen the legs long, but honestly, I'm going to recommend that you kind of start either with really bent knees or kind of halfway down, okay? Just again to let everything sort of take its time to stabilize. And then you can take your arms away from your body, maybe closest to your hips if that feels more supportive, or you can take them out from your shoulders. And then really consciously soften your belly. Start to melt into the blocks. They should feel really comfortable. Okay, if they don't, they might be up just a little high or they might be a little bit too low, but it should really feel very, very spacious because the entire length of your low back is supported here. But I can still bring my hands underneath me onto the lumbar area. So you want to make sure that it's not digging anywhere into the mid back. And then start to really tune in. This is such a great posture to tune into these deep breaths. The front of your chest is open. Just finding a rhythm of breath that feels comfortable in your body for this shape. smooth out any of the edges of your breath so that you're really working with a deep breath that is in and out through your nose. So we're partway through. This is a time for you to sort of assess again, how is the breath? How is the body feeling? Now you might straighten your legs a little bit more. Some of you might just stay exactly where you were, or you might find you need to bring your feet in even closer, okay? So I want you just to notice if the low back feels like it's being pulled a lot, then you're definitely have gone too far. So back out, bend your knees, keep your feet fully grounded. And then come back again to the breath. Just washing that breath over the front of your body. And even if your legs are bent still, you're still getting a nice release for the front of the hip flexors. And of course, you're stabilizing that sacral joint, which is a really important joint that basically helps keep us standing upright. So staying right here in this moment, just watching the breath, just feeling the breath move in and out through your nose. And starting to get a sense that you're almost feeling like you're getting heavier, like you're sinking a little deeper into that block. So we're going to take just a few more rounds of breath. And then we're going to stay on the block, but we're going to make a slight little change here. So take another deep breath in and out through your nose. And then you're going to slowly start to walk those feet nice and close towards your hips again. And then this time you're just going to pick up your heels, but keep your toes grounded. Lift your hips up, slide your block maybe about an inch up higher towards the low back. And then you're going to take your legs up into the air. So coming into waterfall pose. And don't worry, your knees can be very bent. So you could even just let your feet kind of dangle down as well, or they can be up. But don't worry, it's not about trying to get the legs super straight here. If the blocks feel uncomfortable, they might just need to be slightly adjusted down a little bit if you had brought them up a little too high. Try to see if you can get your knees so that they're in line with your hips. Just a little bit more supportive for your lower back. If you like, you can wiggle out your toes, maybe point and flex. This is now that we're heading into super warm, hot, humid weather, this is a really great posture just to drain any excess fluid from your feet and your ankles. especially if you swell a lot or if you're in a lot of heat. And it just allows for blood to be recirculated. It's also really calming to the nervous system, so it's a great posture to do just before bed. And if you have restless legs or you suffer from, just your legs are really tired or achy, if you've been on your feet a lot, this is such an amazing pose. I can't say enough about this one. Of course, if you start to feel any sort of tingling sensation in your toes or legs, then absolutely please come out. And just let your blood recirculate back in its normal direction. If you like, you can sort of open and close the legs. Sometimes I like to create a bit of movement in this posture as well. I'm not always completely still, but just be mindful if you are moving at all. The only thing that moves are the legs. And it's not about trying to, find a really deep inner thigh stretch. It's just about creating a little bit of soft movement, if that feels good. I'm going to take just a few more rounds of breath. Nice and slow. If you like, you can also take your arms up into the air as well and kind of just circle out the wrists. Maybe wiggle out the fingers, especially if you've been working with your hands a lot today. I literally could stay in this pose for hours. I mean, I'd have no blood in my feet and my hands by then, but I find this such a relaxing, calming posture. This can also be done against a wall with your back body laying flat, which is a little bit more restorative. It can also be done against a headboard as well. Like especially if you have a padded headboard, it's really nice to do just before you go to bed. And take a nice long deep breath in and out through your nose. And then slowly start to bring the feet back to the floor. If your arms were elevated, bring your arms back down. Once your feet have landed, just pick your hips up, slide your blocks out, and very slowly lower back down onto the sacrum. And then just pause for a moment, just to let everything settle, especially to let the blood move back through the legs and through the arms. And then you're slowly just going to turn over onto your left side and begin to make your way up. And once you come up to come upright here, you're going to sit on your left hip. Okay, start by just sitting on the left hip and having the knees stacked one on top of the other. And you've just kind of resting into your left arm. We're going to prepare for our next pose. So from here, with my legs one on top of the other, my knees bent, and I'm sitting over onto my left side, I'm just going to open up my right leg a little bit. and my foot is going to flex back. Now, if your knee does not allow for that flexion back, straighten out the leg instead. Works either way. We're focusing more on the left side, okay? With the left leg, see if you can bring the knee so that it is parallel with the hip at 90 degrees. And then the knee is parallel with the ankle at 90 degrees, okay? Now, if that 90-90 just doesn't work because your hip is super tight, bring the foot in a little bit closer, okay? Now, if the left knee is what is causing the issue and you can't bend that, you're going to take that left leg and extend it out straight and see if you can bring the right foot to the inside of the left thigh. Okay, so it's either this option here, and of course you can take a block and tuck it underneath your right knee if you need to. And then if you're working in this variation here, it's either you're kind of leaning over to that left side and then looking at finding that 90-degree configuration. And then maybe the right leg is extended out, or maybe it's okay if it's brought back, okay? So I want you to do what you feel is best first for your knees, because your knees will give out before your hips will, okay? If kind of sitting over to the left side feels a little awkward to you, don't worry about it. You could even put a block underneath your hand to create a little bit more of an elevation for you on that side, okay? For some people, this is not a really deep hip opener. For me, I feel absolutely nothing in this posture. I really have to modify quite a bit in order for me to feel something, but I know that I am still getting 100% of the benefits of this practice by finding a lesser sensational shape, okay? All right, so once you kind of have your ideal shape, why don't you see if you can close your eyes and just sort of settle in. I mean, if you're in my variation of this sort of twisted deer pose, your right sit bone is completely lifted off the mat. You're only grounded through the left side. If you're in the variation of this type here, which is that half dragonfly, then of course, both sit bones grounded, okay? Even if the knee is through an elevation with a block underneath it, okay? And then just slowly start to find these nice, long, deep breaths. Try to imagine yourself as tall as possible and your shoulders down away from your ears, because I can see you guys, you're kind of like a little bit like this. So drop your shoulders down. See, the benefit of me seeing you guys, I can see some of it anyway. I can see kind of like from halfway of your chest up. So all I can see is this part. So you need to relax this part a little bit. Yeah. And then just fine tune that breath. Just, it's like you're playing a violin. It's just a really nice coast of breath in to breath out. Let your jaw relax. And even if you can't, you can't see your face, see if you can just soften it by scanning through, especially that third eye, that space between the eyebrows. Man, that's a spot where we really hold a lot there. Jawline, we hold a lot. Even the eyes, even with eyes closed, sometimes we close them so tight that they don't even relax. If you're beginning to feel a lot of weight kind of on that left shoulder and your hand is on the floor, bring your hand up onto a block. If it's already on the block and you're feeling tension through here, flip the block up to a higher level, bring it in a little bit closer and bring either your forearm onto it or bring your hand onto it, but bring your hand forward in front so that your shoulder and wrist are on a 90-degree angle. Okay. We're still quite heavy through that left sit bone. And we're going to take just a couple of more breaths here. And then we're going to take just a little detour in the shape. Okay, so if you're in this shape, you're just going to turn your chest to face towards the left side. You can bring your block a little bit more on that angle so that you can rest your hands onto it. But I want you to think about staying lengthened through the side body. So twisting here, but still finding lots and lots of length. So you might bring your block in a little bit closer. Okay. If you're in this variation, you can still, if you had this leg out, but you had the front knee okay, I still want you to take a little bit of that twist towards your left side. If it was your left knee, that was the complication. So I gave you this variation here. I still want you to turn towards that left side, but you're going to be bringing your hands so that, you know, one hand is kind of behind you and one hand is in front of you. And this is to help keep your spine straight. Okay. So that's option 1 here. Option 2, again, this is all just because of the knees. So option 2 here, you were, again, just finding a little bit of that twist towards the left with the block in front. Or you had that right knee bent back and you're still finding that wrap of the right shoulder forward and the left shoulder back. Okay. Just keep in mind there is a twist happening here. So not to be going in too deep, we really want to try to keep this in the hips and less so in the spine. So it's about opening up through the hip flexors and the inner thighs. And again, even if you're not feeling a lot of strong physical sensation, that tug of tissue and fascia is still happening, even at a very minute amount. So you're going to find about another 5 breaths here. Just nice and slowly breathing in and breathing out. Take one more breath in and out through your nose. Okay. And then you can open the eyes. With that twist, you want to bring your chest back forward. If you're in this variation here, just kind of lean over so that you can release that right leg out. And if you were in this configuration here, again, you just want to kind of release and bring both feet onto the mat. And let's just extend the legs long for a moment. This is just to help release the knees and the hip flexors. If you like, you can kind of just let your legs shake a little bit from side to side, or even just kind of like wiggle out the feet and the ankles. And then we'll take a little bit of a low back release. So bring the feet onto the mat, feet wide, and just windshield wiper the legs a couple of times each direction. Okay, and then we'll set up for the other side. So I'll show you all three variations here. So first one is I'm just leaning right over to that right hip. I'm going to take my left knee, bend it back behind me. And then I'm going to bring my right leg so that I'm finding a 90-degree configuration. So my ankle is parallel to my knee and my knee is parallel to my hip. So I'm kind of going like that. Okay. Now, if this isn't going to work for the left knee back, the leg gets extended instead, and bring the right foot to the inside of that left thigh. And of course, you might find yourself propping a little bit here. Now, if the left knee going back was okay, but it's the right that's not happy, then you can take this variation here so that we lengthen out that right leg and your block can come underneath your left knee. This way, at least you're just targeting that inner thigh, but also the outer hip, okay? And of course, all three of these variations are all affecting the hips in some degree. We're sitting up tall here. And in this variation of deer pose, I'm resting more towards my right side. I personally like the block underneath my hand, only because for me, it just actually makes me consciously relax my right shoulder, okay? Lets it drop down. And then I'm lengthened through both sides of my body. Chest is facing forward to start with. My shoulders are dropping. My eyes are closing down. And I'm just slowly starting to come into my breath. Now we'll all feel things in different areas. So I talk a lot about this practice is focusing on your hips and your lower back, but hips is such a broad term because it's such a large area. So hips means the inside of the thighs, that's the inner hip area. Then we have the outer container, which is the outer hip that wraps from the low back down to our knees. And then we have that piece that wraps onto the sacroiliac joint that starts from the psoas muscle and runs through the hip flexors and attaches to the low back. So there's a lot of different areas where we say hips, but where we're feeling it, I mean, for myself, the only place where I feel this particular posture is through my inner thighs. Whereas I'm very open in my outer hips, so I don't necessarily feel anything here. When I start to move my body a little bit, I might find a little different sensation. But ultimately, the most important thing in your yin practice is if you're feeling something somewhere in your body, then you're doing the practice beautifully. It doesn't have to be in all the areas that, we say a posture works on. As long as you're feeling something and that something feels good. It might be a little uncomfortable, but certainly not painful. It's definitely a sensation that allows you to breathe, stay focused and mindful, and observant of how things start to shift. Like when I first came into this, my inner left hip was feeling fairly tight. Now that we're, almost 2 minutes into this, I'm starting to feel like things have opened. So I'm feeling less sensation. And as long as I don't shift my body into something else, that sensation will start to lessen and lessen and lessen. And then ultimately I'll feel a little bit more open and spacious. Okay, so now we're going to take the little variation here. So if you are joining me in this particular variation, you're just going to start to turn your chest to face towards the right side. And you can bring that block kind of more in front of you as kind of an anchor to make sure that you don't twist too deeply. You're really trying to contain this in this broad area here, okay? Now, if you are in the variation with the left leg that was in and the right leg was still on that 90-90, you're still finding that little twist. If you were in this variation here, you're just turning to face towards that right leg, okay? And your hands, you have one hand back behind you, one hand in front of you. Of course, you can always bring hands up onto blocks to keep your shoulders level and also to help keep your spine straight, okay? And even if you are sort of looking over that right side, it's really about keeping the chest level and the shoulders relaxed. Okay. And then, of course, finding your breath. It's really moving into that nice, long, expansive breath. And I'm always, when I come into a little variation of a pose, I'm always curious about how just sometimes a little shift of my body can change things. So I'll give you an example. My inner thigh. When I was still facing forward, towards the end of it, things were getting, I would say, a little dull, if you want to look at it that way. Then as I began to turn towards my right knee, all of a sudden, things got a little bit woken up in my inner thigh again. And it's not a very big movement. It's just a very small little micro, I call this a micro movement that I made, but now allows me to access this area a little bit more deeply. So now I'm more mindful of my breath because I've come back into another layer of sensation that I wasn't experiencing towards the end of that last variation of that pose. And again, drop your shoulders down away from your ears. Even at this distance, I have pretty good eyes. I can see your shoulders. They're too close to your ears. Few more deep breaths. Last 3 slow breaths in and out through your nose. So when I mean slow, everyone has a different variation of that. Some people that might be 2 counts of breath in and 2 counts of breath out. Some of you, it might be 5 or 6. Just as long as the pace feels comfortable for you. On your next inhale, just slowly start to bring your chest back to center. Eventually, you're going to find that release and take your legs out straight again. I'm just going to turn to the side so that you guys can see me a little bit better so that when we set up for our next shape, you can see the whole length of my legs. So I recommend that you sit up on the edge of something. It might be a block. You might go as high up as a block. You might go as a cushion. You might even just kind of take your mat, roll it up a few times, and sort of give that as a little bit of a layer for your hips. If you're really tight through your hamstrings, definitely sit up on the edge of a block and place it down at the lowest level. Now, legs don't have to be straight, especially if your hamstrings are very tight. So to modify, you could bend your knees and just take your feet a little bit wider than your knees. So it's almost like you're making like a bit of a V shape, okay? And if you want, you can take a block in front of you at the highest level. And this is all about just the back body. So you're just looking at rounding forward any amount here. If you have the luxury of 2 blocks, you could stack them one on top of the other and just bring your forehead down. Other option, if it's okay to have your legs straight, you're going to take them straight out from you. Don't worry about flexing your feet, just let them relax. I like to have a little bit of space between my knees to put my blocks. And then you want to keep a micro bend in the back of the knees always. You never want to lock through your joints. And then you just passively begin to round forward. Kind of just letting your arms drape down by your sides. Shoulders are consciously drawn away from your ears. And you're folding forward. You can even stack your hands one on top of the other and rest your forehead onto stacked fists. So as long as you're getting a little bit of a rounding forward, so you're finding that slight curvature through your spine, that's all I'm looking for here. Not about trying to get forehead down to the knees. This is just a nice passive release for the spine. And you're just finding these really mindful breaths, but into the back of your body. I want you to think of breathing into your shoulder blades. Eyes are closed. You can slightly draw your navel in a little bit towards your spine if you feel like your lower back needs a little bit of support or that extra stability. But try to keep the arms really, really passive, even if you're using them to support your forehead. So as much as we round and hunch forward when we sit, students often ask me, well, isn't this doing the same thing? And no, it's not. This is a specific type of movement through your spine that allows for some decompression through the spinal cord. So by supporting yourself with blocks, or even if you were just using your hands, it's not the same thing as sitting at a desk or driving and hunching forward. There's a lot of compression that happens when you do that. In this type of shape, we're not finding the compression. We're actually going the opposite. We're decompressing things and lengthening things out in a really healthy way. And then with the back bend that we did earlier in supported bridge with the blocks under the sacrum, we're going the opposite decompression so that we're creating that balance in the back of our body. We're going to take 5 more breaths in and out through your nose. I want you to take them at your own pace. And at the end of the 5th breath, if you can keep your eyes closed, then keep them closed. If not, just open them a tiny bit. And you're going to start to bend your knees a lot and slowly begin to round back up. and then come right onto your back once you lift up and lengthen. I'm going to recommend you bend your knees first and then come down onto your back. And once you come down onto the back, just keep the feet really wide and let your knees touch together. And then slide your shoulder blades apart so that your upper back is nice and flat and that you have that full connection from the back of the head down to the tailbone, grounded and supported. The arms can just rest down by your sides. Take 2 really deep breaths. And then slowly heel toe your feet so that they're side by side. And very gently, you can begin to draw the knees in towards the chest for maybe just a couple of moments with a little rock from side to side. You could also have the knees quite open if that feels better. You could also just windshield wiper the legs a couple of times from side to side as well, if that feels more doable, especially for your knees. And then it's the best part of the class. It's Shavasana now. So you can extend your legs long if you like, or you can keep the knees bent. You could also grab your blocks and tuck them underneath your thighs so that your back and legs are supported. I'm not sure if you want to cover yourself up, but you certainly can if you're feeling a little bit chilled. Eyes closed, arms relax, palms face up somewhere. And just completely soften every single part of your body. And let go. Even let go of the breath. Don't worry about whether there's an inhale or an exhale happening. This time is all about the rejuvenation, the restoration, the repair, and the balance. And there's nothing that you need to do for that to happen. The work has already been done, and now you just reap that benefit of your practice. Now the choice is yours. If you would like to soak up your Shavasana for a little bit longer, if you're not quite ready to go back to the real world, please take a few more moments. And when you do feel like you are ready to transition back, just always come back with your breath first, and then that subtle, gentle movement through your body. And then enjoy the rest of your day. May it be wonderful, and may you have an awesome long weekend. Yes, it is a long, yeah, it's the long weekend coming up. I don't even know what day it is sometimes unless I look at my calendar. Well, thanks so much, you guys, for practicing today. I'll see you next Tuesday. And yeah, have a great weekend.
That hour went by very quickly.
I have something to ask you guys about.
Oh, what's that?
Okay, so Howie, I talked to Wes and he is totally on board to see you. So I sent you his contact info to book an appointment.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And your sprouts. Oh my God, I had some sprouts after you left, Howie, in my salad. Oh, they are seriously the best. I didn't wash them. Should I have?
No.
They're all grown organically and washed with clean stuff. So
I was like, and if there's some dirt in it or a small little bug, well, it's organic, right? But
did Howie say that we've tried just a quick fry with mushrooms and they're really good? Oh yes.
Oh yeah, the sunflower in butter, just a quick
Or
15 seconds.
oil or something.
oh, you know what? I have another idea. Have you ever tried grilled avocado?
No.
No.
Okay. So take an avocado, open it up, take the pit out. You have the two pieces.
Yeah.
Pull a little bit of olive oil on them and then turn them upside down on your grill on a low heat. Doesn't take long. They'll get nice little grill marks.
Yeah.
And then if you want to get really fancy, you can flip the avocado around so you get all the right grill marks like you're grilling a steak. And then once that's done, take them off the grill, add your sauteed sunflower sprouts with a little bit of sea salt and pepper and balsamic vinegar.
Oh wow. Okay, so the avocados are skinless, are they, when you put them on the grill?
No, you still have the outer skin.
Oh,
Right.
okay. Okay.
So you just chop it in half and take the pit out.
Yeah.
And then you put it flesh down on the grill.
Yeah.
Oh my God, so good. But you have to make sure you put some olive oil on them. Otherwise, what happens is the flesh will stick onto your grill. But oh my God, it is so good. If I had some avocado, I would do that tonight, but I don't have any. So, but on the weekend. But yeah, really, really good.
Okay.
Well, as I mentioned to Diane, we'll have to have you over for a barbecue when the lockdown's up.
Yeah.
Well, did you guys listen to it today?
No, we gotta get the 6 o'clock news and find out what happened.
Oh, okay. Well, it was very confusing, but things are opening up. Some things are opening up this weekend, but you're allowed to have outdoor gatherings up to 5 people starting this weekend.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have to get some avocados.
Yeah. Absolutely, you have to get some avocados. Yes.
You still have your bottle of wine to drink.
Yeah, it's gotta be ripe.
If
Trying
they're not,
to get them.
but here's the thing: if they're almost ripe, when you put them on the grill, they'll actually ripen up a little bit. But they've got to have like some kind of like softness to them.
Right. Yeah. That's always the trick.
Yeah. Enjoy.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.